All right, today we are diving into one of the most intense survival stories you'll ever read. We're heading to the frozen north with To Build a Fire by the one and only Jack London. Now, this guy wasn't just making things up. He actually lived through the Klondike Gold Rush, so he knew this kind of bone-deep cold firsthand. This story, it's way more than just a campfire tale. It's a brutal lesson in what happens when you think you're tougher than nature.
So, to really get this story, you have to wrap your head around the cold. And I'm not talking about your average wear a scarf kind of cold. We're talking about 75 degrees below zero. That's 107 degrees of frost. This is the kind of cold where your spit freezes before it even hits the snow. It is a completely different, hostile planet.
So, I gotta ask you, right here at the start, really put yourself in his boots. There's no phone, no GPS, no rescue on the way. It's just you, a dog, and this crushing, silent cold. Honestly, you think you can make it?
Okay, let's set the scene. We're dropping into a world that is completely, and I mean completely, indifferent to whether you live or die. So picture this. The guy is hiking the Yukon Trail. It's 9 in the morning, but don't look for the sun because it ain't coming out. There's just this dim, gray light over everything. Just miles and miles of white snow, white ice, and nothing else. And the silence, it's the kind of quiet that feels heavy. It really makes you feel like you're the only person left in the world.
So who is this guy trudging through this frozen nothingness? Well, he's a newcomer, a Chichaquo, they called them. And here's the kicker, this is his very first winter. He's heard the warnings, gotten some advice, sure, but he doesn't really get it. He doesn't feel it in his bones. And that, right there, is a massive problem. Now here's the absolute key to this character, his fatal flaw. Jack London says the man was without imagination. It doesn't mean he couldn't make up stories. It means he could know a fact, like it's 50 degrees below zero, but he couldn't connect that number to the real-world consequence of, say, his own fingers freezing solid and snapping off. It was just data to him, not danger.
And that fatal flaw sets up the central conflict of the entire story. It's a classic showdown. Flawed human thinking versus pure, raw animal instinct. It really boils down to this. You've got the man, he's new here. He thinks he's smart, he knows the temperature, and he completely blows off the advice from the old-timers who've lived here forever. And then you have his companion, the dog, a husky, native to this land. It doesn't know what a thermometer is, but it feels the truth of the cold in its fur and its paws. It senses the danger, and its only thought is to burrow into the snow and wait. It's just pure, unfiltered instinct.
And this quote from the story just says it all, doesn't it? The dog's gut feeling was more accurate than the man's brain. For the animal, that fear is a tool for survival. For the man, his lack of fear, well, that's a death sentence.
You know, for the first half of his trip, everything is going according to plan. He's feeling pretty good about himself. But then he makes one small mistake that changes everything.
I mean, the guy is crushing it. He's hitting every landmark right on time. He gets to his lunch spot at 12:30 sharp, feeling confident, even a little smug. He stops, builds a fire, eats his biscuits. He's thinking, yeah, I've got this. I'm the master of the Yukon.
Now, the man knew the #1 rule of the Yukon. He knew that getting your feet wet in this kind of cold wasn't just uncomfortable. It was a code-red emergency. It meant you stop everything right then and there, and you build a fire to get dry. No exceptions. He knew this as a fact. And then it happens. Just like that. He's walking carefully, but he steps on a thin patch of ice over a hidden spring. Crack. In an instant, he's soaked up to his knees. And the survival clock that's been ticking all along, it just started ticking a whole lot faster.
So, this is it. The moment of truth. Everything, his whole life, now comes down to one simple act. He has to build a fire.
And at first, he does it. He gets a fire going. He's annoyed about the delay, but he's safe. He's sitting there thinking about those old-timers and their warnings, thinking they were just weak. Any real man, he thinks, can handle this alone. He beat the cold. He's safe, or so he thinks. And then, in a single awful second, the worst possible thing happens. So what was his mistake? It was a total rookie error, born out of pure carelessness. He built his fire under a big spruce tree that was just sagging with snow. As he's pulling little twigs to feed the flame, he shakes a branch. A little snow falls, then a little more, and then the whole thing gives way.
The entire load of snow from the tree comes down in one big whoosh and completely buries his fire. It's gone, snuffed out.
The shock is total. That soft whoosh of the snow falling wasn't just a sound. For him, it was the sound of his own death sentence being read out loud. And for the first time, real, gut-wrenching panic sets in. The cold isn't just a number anymore. It's a monster that is actively hunting him. His second try is just pure, frantic desperation. His fingers are so numb they're not even his anymore. He can't feel them enough to pull out a single match. So he grabs the whole bundle, 70 matches, and strikes them all at once against his leg. He shoves the blazing ball of fire into some tinder, smelling his own skin burning, but he doesn't care. He gets a tiny flame going, but his whole body is shaking uncontrollably now, and he fumbles, scattering the fragile embers into the snow. And just like that, the fire is gone for good.
Well, with all hope of a fire completely gone, the man now enters the final, chilling chapter of his story. A wild thought flashes through his mind. Kill the dog. He could slice it open and plunge his hands inside its warm body. But it's too late. His hands are frozen clubs. He can't hold the knife. He can't even grab the dog, which senses something is terribly wrong. So, in a final, panicked burst, he just starts running blindly down the trail, hoping the motion itself will save him. But he knows it's useless.
And then, a strange calm washes over him. He just stops running. He finally admits to himself that he's going to die, and he decides that it's better to face it with some dignity than to run around like a panicked animal. The fear fades away, and it's replaced by a weirdly comfortable sleepiness. In his last moments, as he drifts off into sleep, he thinks of the old-timer from Sulphur Creek, the man whose advice he had laughed at. He pictures him, safe and warm, and he actually says his last words out loud to him. You were right. It's the final admission. He finally understands the truth of the Yukon, but it's far, far too late.
You know, this story is such a powerful reminder that there's a huge difference between knowledge and wisdom. The man had the facts, the knowledge, but the old-timer had wisdom earned from experience. And it makes you think, doesn't it? In our own lives, what's one piece of advice you were given that you probably should have listened to?